Hi, everyone. This is Liz Charlene Tate. Welcome to the second season of the Itsy Bitsy Zoomcast project. This season is called the ABCs and HCCs of the Early Childhood Education. We are using the letters HCC in the title of every episode this semester to acknowledge and celebrate that this is the 75th anniversary of Holyoke Community College. Today's HCCs are happiness through conscious connection.
Thanks, Liz. We're so glad to be back on the second season. Again, this season, HCC practicum students are leading our conversations this semester. So we have two practicum students here as guest hosts, Miranda Cortez and Erin Simmons. So they're both current practicum and students at HCC, and they've been working with their colleagues in their practicum sites and with their peers in Moodle to have a conversation. So with them tonight, we have two guests that will be joining the conversation designed by the students. So our guests tonight are Trisha Kiefer and Kim Quinlan. Trisha, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. So I am currently the interim dean of social science, business, and integrative learning at Holyoke Community College. Prior to that, I was the department chair of the education department, as well as served on many different kinds of statewide committees, national efforts, and local efforts to support the field of education.
We're so glad that you're here with us tonight, Trisha. Thank you
for having me.
Kim, you're a regular on our Zoomcast, so we're glad to have you back. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Happy to be back again. Thank you. My name is Kim Quinlan. I'm the Director of Early Childhood Grant Initiatives at Holyoke Community College. In that role, I get to work with folks both on the Career Pathways Grant as well as the Strong Start Professional Development Center grant. I've been at HCC for almost 2 years now. And prior to that, I was a teacher and a director and a coach for early childhood people. But I always like to point out on our Itsy Bitsy Zoomcast that I am also an HCC alum. And so I am a graduate of the early childhood department at HCC. So thanks for having me back.
We're so glad that you're back. So our HCCs tonight are happiness through conscious connections. So this is an idea that I've been thinking about as we reflect on our time in the pandemic. Because for me, a lot of my personal and professional joy comes from making connections with my peers and my colleagues and my students. And even when I was a family childcare provider and a classroom teacher, the connections I would make with the materials I chose to bring to my classroom and seeing how the children would engage, those are the things that bring joy. And what I've been finding through the pandemic is that to find that happiness, it doesn't always happen organically anymore because we're all in our own home spaces. So we have to find those connections, build that happiness in really conscious ways. So that's the theme for tonight, happiness through making conscious connections. And an example of that is this Zoomcast project. This is something that has brought me so much professional joy to see my students connect with alumni and professionals in the field, and for me to connect more closely with my colleagues in this new way. So I brought this idea to the practicum students, this whole mindset of happiness through conscious connections. And I wanted them to think about and converse with their mentor teacher about what that idea meant to them. Miranda, can you tell our audience and ask our guests a little bit more about how that played out for us in class?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that Sheila had us do in practicum was to ask our mentor teachers the following question and report back to the group with the results. So teachers have relationships with families, children, colleagues, their professional network, as well as materials and curriculum. Can you rank these from 1 through 5, 1 being the relationship that brings you the most happiness or fulfillment, and 5 being the least? Then we asked a follow-up question. When you are stressed, do you lean into one connection consciously to motivate yourself? What we found was very interesting. Every response ranked turning to their professional network in 5th place, which is last, and no one put it in their top 3. What do you make of that? Dean Kiefer, can you share your reaction to this?
Sure. So I guess I'm not too surprised. And the reason I'm not so surprised is because if we think of systems theory, if we think of, our microsystem, that which is very closest to us and provides us the most endearing supports in our existence, in our life, those are those things that are children and families and your loved ones, from a microsystem perspective. And then as we build out and we think about, a macro system, so a bigger system of support, that's where maybe professional connections and associations are usually housed. So I guess I'm not so surprised. However, with that said, I think that it's unfortunate that we're not thinking about those more conscientiously, because when we reach out to those who are having some of the same experiences we are on a professional level and receive that support, new ideas emerge. It's comforting in a lot of ways. And so anything that we can do to support those kinds of connections and engagements into the wider community, whether it be, your city, the state, or nationally, or potentially globally, I think could really be advantageous for all of us.
That's really wonderful to think about it that way, that micro to macro perspective and what that means and how those choices come to be. Kim, how about you?
I agree with what Trisha was saying, that I'm not surprised to hear that. Because it's harder, right? So you're in your center, you can kind of talk to your co-teacher, or, you go home at the end of the day and you can easily talk to your family and friends, but it's harder to get out of the classroom and to make those connections. Even when it's virtual, it's still harder because it's outside of your work hours usually, it's in the evening. You have to go someplace. Even if going someplace just means a Zoom, you still have to make the effort to get to a different space. And so that's harder. And when you're tired and it's the end of a long day, especially, like the question said, when you're stressed, it's harder to make that space. However, I also know that once you've made the space and you've put the effort in, the support that you get from that community is so valuable. And, even if the people that you're talking to aren't like solving your problem for you, just the fact that you're talking to someone who understands what you're dealing with is incredibly powerful. And it releases some of the stress that you're feeling because you're not alone. So I'm not surprised, but I do hope that we can, use environments like this to help people understand the importance of that connection, even if they have to, put themselves out or do something when they're tired. It's really an important thing to learn to do.
That's great. And that really reminds me, it leads us right into thinking about that idea deeper of how do we make that connection and how do we prioritize it and make time for that conscious connection. So it leads me right to the question that Erin had developed for tonight, which you kind of answered, but this will push us to go a little deeper. Erin, go ahead and ask that question.
Yeah. So how can we find or create a place and process for teachers to be there for each other in the early education and care field? Do you think it is important to connect with educators from their programs? Kim, can you respond from your perspective?
Yeah, from other programs, teachers from other programs connecting. How can we do that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways, and attending trainings and professional learning communities are a really beneficial way to do that. I will say, I will never forget the first time I attended a professional conference when I was a teacher, and just the energy and the excitement of being with other people who are passionate about the field you've chosen to work in is truly one of the most empowering things that you can do. So post-pandemic, I can't wait for everyone to be in spaces together again. But I think it's really important. And so at this time, to reach out to trainings, professional learning communities, other ways that you can engage with people from outside of your program will really allow you to develop a deeper perspective on your work and your teaching. And it'll provide you to see ideas that within the small confines of your program, maybe you haven't thought of or you haven't experienced.
Yeah. Trish, how about you? You're always really good at finding ways to bring people together, get them excited. This is one of your strengths. So how can we do?
So I was thinking about this a lot. So in some of the professional development that I worked in, we had to determine, like, really think about your core values. And one of my core values is sense of belonging, right? So really thinking about how to engage. And Kim, mentioned things like, trainings or professional learning groups. And I want to go a little bit bigger and say, well, what about like statewide initiatives and ways to think about changing policies and procedures and ways to look at, connecting, across states even. Like, we can do this. We can become bigger than our programs. And when we do that, we engage with thought partners that impact how we think and what we do in our work. And it really promotes sort of an innovative perspective in our work with children and with families. So at all kinds of levels, I think that this is really a powerful skill to have, to be able to do this.
I am just thrilled to hear that this idea of thought partners has come up a couple of times for us. So I think that's really going to help Liz and I in our work and thinking about all the things we're learning through the Zoomcast and how we can use that information to help our field. And with that in mind, Liz and I have decided that we're going to end our episodes in a different way this semester. So Liz, do you want to tell them?
Yeah, I'll explain that. So, last season we ended every episode with a quote, usually from Mr. Rogers, and that felt really good. This season we've decided instead to close with an action step. So we seek to yield positive change driven by the needs of our field while also building bridges for our newest members of the field, which are you, Erin and Miranda, the HCC Practicum students. This episode's action step is related to helping early childhood educators connect with each other throughout Western Massachusetts. We invite you to fill out the Google form that's going to be here in the show notes so that we can collect feedback from everyone in Western Mass in our early childhood field about what is needed in order to create strong, responsive, and effective professional learning networks that educators will want to be a part of.
This is going to be great. So students, you get to be a part of helping us to make positive change and helping to build connections using this Zoomcast opportunity. You did a really great job designing tonight's episode, and I want to thank you both, Miranda and Erin, for the time you spent with Liz and I beforehand, this time you spent with mentor teachers and your peers designing this episode.
And Sheila, I just want to say I look forward to the fact that we'll be able to have this action step be something that drives us forward and that we'll be able to come on to a show and share the results of this effort.
Absolutely. And invite people to join whatever professional network we are able to create.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kim and Trisha, thank you both for being on tonight. We're just thrilled that you were both here and sharing your expertise and your thoughts. You're just both so dedicated to working in this field in your own unique ways. And it was really great to build happiness through conscious connections in this episode. So thank you everyone for joining us for the first episode of season 2. We'll see you more for more ABCs and HCCs of early childhood.
Thank you.
you.
Bye, everybody.